morning, as now Father Michael said last week in his homily about the Gospel of John. This is called the bread of life discourse, which means, very simple, John's just talking about Jesus, the bread of life. There are 7 things that Jesus calls himself through the Gospel of John, and that magic number 7, we know, always appears to us. He says, I am the bread of life, I am the light of the world, I am the door, so we'll open it. I am the good shepherd, I am the way, I am the resurrection, and also I am the true vine, and we're going to add a little bit more, and my Father is the vine dresser. But today Jesus states emphatically and literally that he is in fact bread. But not just any old kind of bread. Bread for the life of the world. He sustains life. Without sustenance, there's only one thing, isn't there? Death. If you don't eat, you're going to drop dead. And we know that in India and the Middle East, we know that in 1947, what do you think the mortality rate was? 1947 now, this is, a lot of us were born, a few of us were born. Michael wasn't, but the rest of us were getting close to being born. What was the mortality rate? It shocked me. 27 years old. That's crazy when you think of it. 1947. 27, 28. You know, there are people who will live past that, of course, but the average median range, 28. These people in the Middle East, the people in India as well, the people throughout the world knew one thing. Life was short because, darn it, 28 was, just think, when you were 28, that was it. You probably weren't going to last all that much longer than that. Without sustenance, and much of this had to do with sustenance. Even in 1947, there was not a whole lot of food through Africa, through India, the Middle East. A bit different in Europe, but not a whole lot more different. So sustenance. What is this thing called sustenance? It is bread. If God appeared to you today after you didn't eat for 6 days, what would you ask him for? Sustenance, something to eat. That's going to be the first thing on your mind. Sustenance. Because without it, not going to last you all that long. Jesus says, I am the bread of life. And that sounds interesting and maybe even a little theological for the theologians among us. It might sound even Eucharistic. But I think it's much simpler than that. Jesus was telling his followers that he was, in fact, the sustenance. Not just of soul, but of body. Body and soul. If you don't have a body, my brothers and sisters, hang it up. If you're dying at 28, it's pretty sad, isn't it? He gives sustenance to us. Everything today, we probably live in a time today where everything is at our fingertips. We have never lived in such a convenient time. Every family has 2 cars usually. Back in the day, when our family was starting out, we had 1 car. We were lucky to have that car. We had 1 television. We didn't have a television in every room. Of course, we did not have internet. We didn't have a washer that also washed and dried your clothes. We had an old wringer that, oh my God, this thing was a beast. And on the top were the rollers. I don't know if you remember seeing them. You put the clothes through. Just in my lifetime, we have become the most convenient people on earth. We are living where kings and queens did not have as much as we have, the average family. Never mind just bread alone. We are the most blessed generation with convenience. I wish to say that we were also that way with love and joy. But the more convenient life becomes, the more that life gives us, the less joy, the less love that we have for one another, because we become just another commodity. When faced with extreme poverty, the people of Jesus' time took his reference literally. Make no mistake about that. Let's not get into all this nice talk about, he's talking about the Eucharist. Yeah, that might be true. That might be true. But he's talking about sustaining life on a physical and also a spiritual level. And I think we forget that because life is just so convenient now. When we want bread, I go down and Stop and Shop. I can get gluten-free, I can get seeded bread, I can get poppy seeds, I can get bagels. I can get, if you go down the bread aisle, it's one of the longest aisles that you've ever seen. You don't even know what kind of bread to get anymore. I'm like, oh my God. It's crazy how convenient life has become. But bread in Jesus' time was fundamental to survival. And don't let that escape you. People would live on bread alone. Trust me. Maybe a little bit of wine on the side because the water was so bad. Bread for the body and bread for the soul. When people ate the agape meal, it was vastly different than what we will experience in a few minutes here. Just having a host, not just having a host. I don't want to just say that to brush it off, but the agape meal was a full meal. We have even lost the ability. All of our hosts are manufactured usually by one company called Cabanon. They're locally. Even years ago, if you were a Roman Catholic, nuns would make the host. They would that would be their job, making the host. They don't do that today. Or the Benedictine brothers, or many, many different orders, made the holy bread for this table. We don't even do that today. We have a company that just stamps them out. You can get them real fancy. You can get them very, very plain. We don't even do that for ourselves. One thing that I can say for the Orthodox, if you've ever been to their liturgy, what they do is sometimes they take turns, someone in the community bakes the loaf for the table. And it is substantial. If you've ever been to an Orthodox Divine Liturgy, I call it the Mass, pretty good sized piece of bread. Something of sustenance, something that will sustain you. And I'm not saying that what we have in this host is not spiritually affecting us. It is not the Eucharist, of course it is. But we can see through the centuries, from the agape meal to this very table today, how little by little by little by little, it is no more sustenance, real food. People would go to these meals to eat. And when Jesus said, I am the bread of life, they said, hey, there's a soup kitchen this guy named Jesus runs, and you eat. And he sustains both your body and your soul. Never forget that. You have your head in the clouds if you just think the Eucharist is sustain your soul. Right? You've got your head in the clouds. This is for body and for soul. And I think that's what Jesus is talking about today when he says, I am that sustenance. I am that bread. I think that the way that things have changed over the centuries from Jesus' time is very, very telling. When the Eucharist might be the only piece of bread that a poor person would eat that day. Can you imagine that? What a marketing strategy. And it is a great marketing strategy because you are affecting people where they live. Their belly. And I'll tell you what, if your belly's not full, forget about praying. Because it's not going to happen. Because all you're going to think about is I'm hungry, I'm hungry, I'm hungry. Fill the belly and the Spirit will follow. Jesus knew this. I am the bread of life. I am sustenance for you. Not just for heaven, but right now. Right now. God's people, and that's everybody who is in need today, need to get back to the Eucharist, need to get back to that bread. Jesus Christ, I believe, is the only answer to our needs today, our only sustenance to our needs today. There's no other. There are a lot of good ideas, there are a lot of good people, but Jesus Christ, the bread of life, the light of the world, the vine, He is our all in all. And don't forget that. Sometimes we do. I am the bread of life. He who comes to me shall not hunger. Fill your belly and feed those people around you, and prayer will come.